Give us an emperor from humble beginnings. Give us a leader our armies will follow. Give us Emperor Aurelian.
Good afternoon, I'm the Dark Ages with Nick, and today we're talking about probably the most overhated DLC, which I can give credit to actually have playing. I can't speak to the Wrath of Sparta or Rise of the Republic, but yeah, Empire Divided is one of the, I think, most disliked DLCs. I wouldn't say it's hated, but it's certainly not given the love it deserves. Right now, it's sitting at a total of mixed reviews on Steam, having released on November 30th, 2017, and I only got it recently because there was a sale on it, so... However, after playing a full Aurelian campaign, I can say that the mixed review is very unfounded, and these are my reasons why, as well as addressing the criticisms. The first thing that's different from the faction selection is that there's three big Roman factions, two of them starting with client states. Don't worry, I'll address those little guys in a second. But there's also new Gothic and also Hellenic factions to represent the new peoples and cultures that have migrated to the peripheries of the Roman Empire. But we all know why you got this DLC, to play Emperor Aurelian. He starts in the Balkan provinces, at war with Italy and Gaul. He has client states in Africa and Anatolia, and he is going to have to march to Italy, then defeat the Gallic Empire, then defeat Palmyra. It's a very fun campaign, but it can be long. You're also surrounded by hostile Germanic and Gothic tribes, and you have to fight those guys day one. Army-wise, Emperor Aurelian is probably number 2 in difficulty. He starts with a good base of auxiliary troops, which can provide an advantage over some levies, but the other areas of the provinces really do not have any good troops until you research the relevant technologies, which for all factions has gotten a unique rework and more reflects the different actions and stages of the reclamation of the empire. For his roster, he has a very, very good assortment of heavy cavalry and legionnaires. Now moving to the Gallic Empire, led by Tetricus, it is probably the easiest Roman start, with strong allies in Britain and only 2 starting barbarian factions on your border, as well as the imperial pretenders in Italy. However, the hard part comes from Spain. Spain is so annoying because the 2 governors, the rival factions, will basically declare war on each other day one, and you'll have to pick a side, and it really is not fun to fight. As for recruiting, Tetricus starts with being only able to recruit the basic levy units, and having only a couple high-grade units across his armies. However, his roster makes up for it with excellent auxiliary units and longsword cohorts for his legionnaires. Next up is the Palmyric Empire, led by Queen Zenobia. She starts with no client states, but an isolated and very rich start. She starts at war only with Egypt, but Aurelian will get called in eventually, but it is a good groundwork to start. To make up for this, as well as the looming threat of the Sassanids, Zenobia starts with probably the best recruitment at the game start. Her roster reflects the Hellenistic and Eastern influences on Palmyra, with some great Eastern units. Militarily, all factions also now benefit from new unit card art, which I find a step up from the base game Rome 2. As for the Romans, because I played so much of them, I find the new units incredibly beautiful, with the transition from the early 3rd century helmets to the more 4th century ridge helmets, and this becomes more noticeable the later your units get and the higher tier they are. Back to the campaign, corruption and banditry are very pertinent problems for the Empire. In my Aurelian game, where I reunited the Roman Empire, I had a corruption about 100%. The religious changes of the period are also represented through the cult system for at least the Romans in my experience, with Mithraic, Manichaean, and the newly popular Christians gaining popularity, with a wide variety of events related to it. All three Roman factions, as well as the Goths and Sassanid Persians, have mission trees that follow the progression of the character. Now, for the actual meat and bones of this review, we'll be talking the pros, the cons, which might have some relevant basis to why they're in the game, and then my actual complaints with the game. Now, for pros, I want to just get started by saying all the unit models look really, really good, and all the new rosters for the different factions really work. For example, the Allens, which in the base games, step factions really do not have a good roster. They actually have a pretty decent roster with good melee units and good non-horse units, basically. And for the Empire management at large, as I can only attest to having playing the Roman Empire, it does feel like you're managing a collapsing empire. You're out of funds, you're constantly having to fight multiple armies at one time. And for the cold system, I find it really just a good representation of the different religious movements and changes that occurred in the empire as the 3rd century progressed. I wish it was a little more fleshed out, like in Attila, where you could actually change religion. I think it would have been interesting to have like an option to convert to Christianity or convert to Mithraic paganism. But they do exist in the game and they do provide benefits, so I do find it interesting. And now for the cons, this is what I've found reading through the reviews, what people didn't like, but I thought really represented the period, because this is the Empire on the brink of death with only one man coming to save it. Most people found issue with the large start for the Roman factions, and I say that's basically the whole point. You're playing as a large established chunk of the Empire, and I found that at least to be one of the reasons I got this, because I should also mention Attila is one of my favorite games, if not my most favorite Total War, because of this reason. You're fighting as basically a unit of the Empire, and you're trying to take back what is yours. As for the next relevant complaint, there are a lot of barbarians on your border, because again, it is the crisis of the 3rd century. I'm gonna pull that card a lot. You're basically playing an empire teetering on the brink. And for this reason, as well as it being the crisis of the 3rd century, the Romans are going to be the most fleshed out factions, with the Goths and Sassanids being a close second, because those groups had the most relevance to the crisis of the 3rd century. I don't think it's really that big of a deal for the Romans to be getting this much love and attention, and frankly, I find it just a little bit of an unfounded claim, an unfounded complaint. If you're getting a DLC based off the crisis of the 3rd century, don't be surprised when it focuses on the main actors of the crisis of the 3rd century. However, there are some actual complaints that I do have with the Empire Divided DLC. First of all, the client states are really, really annoying to deal with. As Aurelian and as the Gaelic Empire, you start with, for the Gaelic Empire, you start with Spain and Britain under your control via client states. And for Aurelian, you start with Africa and Anatolia. The problem spots for both parts are Spain for the Gaelic Empire and Africa for Aurelian. Both of those areas will fight each other as soon as you end your turn on the first turn, and they will call you into it, leading you to have to break your alliance with one of them, and it's usually the aggressor who wins, and so you have to then make peace with them, and if you even make peace with them, you're not going to get them as a client state again. It also makes it, there's this weird thing where if you fight them, and then you make peace with them, and you call them into your war, and then make a peace with the enemy you just called them in, the peace won't apply to them. And so, for example, my completed Aurelian game, I had the Caledoni, the Scottish tribe to the north, as a client state, and I fought a war with the Sassanids. I won, I made peace, and then I checked the Caledoni, they're sending an army over because they're still at war with the Sassanids and all their satraps. I had that issue also with Africa. I made peace with Numidia, which was the province that revolted, and my Spanish puppet was still dealing with them because as if you beat the other rival faction, you can claim their client states. Because I think there might be a diplomatic mechanic where, as soon as you beat the rival empire, if you set up a client state, they usually acquiesce and agree. But Numidia just was so annoying to deal with. For the last two complaints, I played on hard difficulties, so I can say once you get past the opening turns of Rome, it's really not that big of a struggle. You have to basically fight the urge to auto resolve a lot of your battles, in which you can basically automatically win. The other complaint is Romans are really the only interesting people, as well as the Sassanids to play, as they're the ones with the main story, the main content. You could play the Goths, which do have some content, but they start on the periphery of the empire. And the same problem is faced by the Marcomanni and Caledoni. The AI will find a way to bring up hosts of armies that they're able to raise from the manpower and the treasury that the Roman states can muster, because the AI can make a lot of money and raise a lot of armies, which as Roman it's not going to be hard to deal with because they're usually lower end armies. But if you're playing as a tribe with only one city and you can only bring one army to the field, you're not going to have a good time. Overall, I'll have to give this an 8 or 9 out of 10. I give it an 8 when I think about the client states, and a 9 when I think about the DLC in general. I would recommend this if you're really interested in the period. However, if you don't have an interest in the period, you might find some of the complaints and the non-complaints sort of valid. However, I should note that I'm a very generous reviewer, and I've only played about 20 hours of this campaign, but I think it is a good campaign, and I find it interesting. So, anyway, I'm the Dark Ages with Nick. This is a review. I'll probably make more. I'll make one on the last Roman. I might be a little harsher on that than on this, but I recommend Empire Divided, and please enjoy the closing minutes of this battle.
Ready! At the double! Legionaries! Ready, troops! Quick march! Pikemen! By your command! Battle ready! Battle! Swords! By your command! At your service!